Hello friends and welcome to another edition of Into Fly Fishing. Today we're going to take a look at the brand new Claymore from Redington. We're going to show you what we like about this rod, what we don't like so much, and how it might fit into your arsenal. So let's get going. Welcome friends, I'm Nick Jovanovich, this is Into Fly Fishing, and like I said, today we're going to take a look at my brand new Redington Claymore rod. I've been fly fishing for about 35 years of my life. I've been a professional guide as well in Southwest Montana for the last 15. So I get to use a lot of rods, a lot of reels, and a lot of lines. I abuse them. I have them used daily by clients. So we get a lot of use in a short amount of time to see how things are going to stand up. And it's really nice because I get a front row seat in how not only I use the equipment, how it works for me, but how it works for other people. I've been really excited to get my hands on this rod. I have a 12 and a half foot 6 weight model here to try out today. And for me, that's a perfect rod to do a little bit of heavy trout spey and also some light steelhead swing. I'm actually going to go for some pretty decent sized steelhead with this Claymore model. If you're in the market for something like the Claymore, you may have already looked at the Orvis Clearwater two-hand version or maybe the Loop Opti NXT two-hand version as well. Now, before we jump into that video, let me go ahead and ask you to like this video here, subscribe to the channel. We greatly appreciate it. It does take a lot of time, effort, and yes, even money to bring these videos to you. We love bringing these videos to you. We love doing it for you, and we want to keep doing it, so your support is greatly appreciated. Also, this rod, you'll see a link to this rod in the description below. If you feel like you want to pick up this rod, click that link below, and that will help us out big time. You'll get your new rod shipped to you, and we all win. So thank you very much. Now let's get on with the review. Now, a little bit about how we do the reviews. So generally speaking, when it comes to something like a spey rod, you have to do a water-loaded cast. It's really hard to get out on your local soccer field or in your backyard and try to make casts with these because those heavy lines require a water loading. So we're out here today to make some casts, and we're also going to take this thing and do some real fishing with this. Got a steelhead trip coming up. We're going to get this out on the water and get some real world experience. Now, of course, the Redington website is going to be a wonderful resource for information on this rod, but we're not going to stop there. We're actually going to take this rod, we do our own measurements, we do our own weighing, and compare that to what the website says and see how they line up. Sometimes they line up perfectly, and sometimes we find that something like the weight is a little bit different than what the website might list. So what I like to do with something like this spey rod is come out onto the water and I'm going to range some targets. So we'll pick out a boulder that's maybe 40, 50 feet, something that's in the 70 feet, something that's beyond. Now, short shots with something like this Claymore, like this spey rod, is not really something that we're going to do. When you're swinging for trout or steelhead or salmon or what have you, you're usually going to cover some distance. It's a really effective way to cover much more water in a short amount of time. So as you can see, I've paired it with the Redington Behemoth rod. We won't talk about that too much. Just wanted you to know for the sake of the video, in case you're questioning. We'll have a review up for this one here soon. And I've got some Rio shooting line on this thing as well. But as far as the rod itself, take a look at that cork. You got a nice, decent grade, light colored cork. It's got a really high contrast to it. That's kind of fun. And what Redington does here is add a little bit of a grip. Those are rubber grips there, one for your thumb on the forward and then one for the back of your hand, your pinky on the rear grip, no matter which way you're grabbing. But that's just because when you're out steelhead fishing or salmon fishing, a lot of times it's pretty wet and pretty cold and can be kind of miserable. That just is supposed to aid in the grip of the rod in those wet conditions. You notice a little bit of a composite cork on the very tip of both of the handles. That's a harder, more durable cork on both ends, just because you're going to have a lot of wear and tear on the ends of that. So taking a look at the reel seat now, we've got this dark gray anodized aluminum reel seat, and you've got a double locking down lock. That means the reel lock goes down toward the butt end of the rod. Then you cinch up that first ring and then the second ring and everything will stay in place. Now the stripping guides and the snake guides here are anodized aluminum, and you've got ceramic inserts there on the stripping guide. Now you're not going to get a bug keeper at the top of the handle on this one. And again, that's just another thing that line will get wrapped around, especially on something like a spey rod. when you're doing a lot of shooting, you got the shooting line kind of flying out through the rod. You don't want anything extra to get wrapped around and hold and stop your shot. Now, the case that comes with this one is a Cordura covered case. It's a zipper top, and the inside of the case, there's no rod sock that comes with this one. The case itself has built-in dividers. And to me, that's good and bad. It's very convenient. You can just put the different pieces in those divided sections. But on the other hand, there's no rod sock that you can take out. Say you're traveling. I use a traveling carry-on case when I'm on flights. If I don't have a rod sock, then I have to go buy something extra to put this Claymore in, to put it in my travel case. So I've been really excited to get this thing out here because the Redington Claymore is the next iteration of the Redington Chromer. I had a couple of Chromers in a couple of different sizes, and if you know anything about the Chromer, it was a highly, highly touted two-hand rod from Redington. Reviewers, fishermen, guides, people were putting it up there with $1,000 rods and saying it was just that good. Of course, the Redington's going to be in the Sage lineage, so you get a lot of trickle-down effect from the Sage company. Now, the Redington Chromer, however, it was listed as a fast action rod, and if you ask a lot of people, it was an extremely fast rod. You had to be very technical, and you really kind of had to know what you were doing to really get that rod to load. Great for advanced casters, not so great for beginners. Now, this one is also listed as a fast action rod, but from what I've been told, and we'll see how it goes out here today, this is actually just slightly less fast than that Chromer, meaning that more people should be able to find the sweet spot on this still fast action two-handed rod. Like I said, this one is a 12.5-foot 6-weight rod, but there are some different options available. You can start off with that 11.5-foot version that's in that switch category. That's available in a 6 to 8 weight version. Then you've got what would be considered maybe a trout spey or a light spey, which is a 12-foot 3-inch 5-weight. Then we'll jump up to your traditional spey casting or spey rods like this one, your 12.5-foot 7 and 8 weight versions, and then you can jump up even to a 13.5-foot 8-weight version if you like. All the Redington Chromers are 4 pieces, and so of course they break down for travel and storage very easily like most rods do. Now, the overall weight of this rod alone, of course without the reel, was 6 ounces, which I thought was pretty good for such a long rod. When you compare that with other spey models, it's kind of right in that median range there. So it's not too heavy, it's not too light. It's got a really good in-hand feel. And when you go to look at something like a swing weight on a spey rod, a lot of times you're not going to find a lot of information there because, well, you're just not fishing this like a traditional two-hand rod. So there's the basic information for you. Now it's time to get out here and make some casts to see how this thing feels. Okay, so we've got somewhat of a broad piece of river here. Let's get out here and make a few casts. Now, spey casting, you're not really going for short distances. So we're going to try medium and long distance shots with a few different types of casts. So we're going to try out a traditional D-loop, a snap T, and a parry poke at medium and long distance and see how this rod feels. Okay, let's start off with a short distance D-loop. Now, the short distance is going to be a little bit harder to load the rod. It's a fast action rod, so I could feel that a little bit, but it wasn't really a hindrance. That felt just fine. So let's let a little bit more line out. We're going to try a little bit longer D-loop here. Okay, a much longer shot on the D-loop felt just fine. Now, it is, again, I can tell it's a fast action rod, so knowing where that sweet spot is in the cast is going to help and make a bunch of difference, but I felt that load really well. It shot a pretty good distance on that D-loop. Now, let's move on to a snap T. Short snap T, super easy on this rod. Let's try a little bit longer.
A longer snap T shot is actually super easy on this rod, and I think that's because you got a lot more line weight outside of the tip of the rod. Now let's try a couple of parry poke. The longer shots with a little bit more line weight out are a little bit easier, but there's no trouble with these shorter shots. Parry poke, snap T, what have you. And just like all the other casts, the longer parry poke was pretty easy to accomplish. You just have more line weight out, and you're hitting the sweet spot a little bit easier. The snap tee was a super, super crisp cast on this rod. I like that one probably the best, but any of the long distance shots, as long as you're hitting that sweet spot, they feel like they sail pretty easily.
Well, I'm hoping you can hear me okay because the microphone just fell off into the water, but I got to keep going on this thing, and so we'll get it done. I apologize for that. But what is this rod for? Well, this is a great lineup of rods that covers everything from trout spey to switch fishing, switch style casting, which you can fish the single hand or a swing style, and all the way up to this full swing, the Skagit Scandi type casting of rods. So generally with this rod, you're going to be looking at swinging streamers across the current or skidding dry flies across the current to get induced takes or strikes from trout, salmon, steelhead, and I'm sure you could probably use this as a surf casting tool as well, so you can get a big water load cast and get some nice long shots. The price on this thing is a nice $449. Now, that's pretty middle of the road, and if you compare to a lot of other rods, high-end rods are going to cost you, especially for a two-handed version, over $1,000. You can get some entry stuff in the $200 range, but this puts you kind of right in the middle of the category. So what's the verdict on this thing? Well, let's talk about who it's intended for. This rod is, of course, it replaced, like I said, that chromer rod that was so well beloved by people throughout the industry. We're kind of targeting the intermediate to even advanced fishermen, or the intermediate that have a little bit of experience with two-handed casting and don't want to break the bank to get a nice, solid rod, or even the advanced casters that maybe don't want to spend another $1,000 on another spey rod, but want something specific to a situation to kind of fill the quiver and give you more option in what to fish. You guys are really going to like this. Now, beginners, because this is a fast action rod, you can pick this one up, but I would suggest starting with like the Redington Dually instead. It's a little bit softer and flex and a little bit more of a medium mid fast action. It's easier to load, easier to find the sweet spot than it is on this Claymore, although if you want to step up and get this one, you will figure it out eventually and you will really enjoy it. This is the one you can keep fishing for quite a long time. So what about the other rods that we were comparing this to? Well, that Orvis Clearwater two-hand comes in at $398. Now, that's less than the Claymore. That Clearwater is available in an 11.5-foot 3-weight all the way up to a 15-foot 10-weight. So you do get kind of a bigger range with the Orvis lineup. On that rod, you are going to get the Orvis name, which people really love, fans of Orvis really love, but that is another foreign-made rod. That's why the price is a little bit less. You don't have quite as nice as the high-end Orvis rods. You don't get all of the components that you would on those higher-end rods. And some of the reviews on that, I haven't cast it myself, but some of the reviews on that Clearwater two-hand are actually a little less than stellar. You get better reviews on this Claymore. Now, what about the Loop Opti NXT? Well, 10-weight. So again, you have a much broader spectrum of rods. That's not really going to give you that switch or the trout spey category if you want to go with that loop rod. And it also comes in at $520. So you're going to pay a little bit more than this Claymore. Now, in the loop line with that Opti NXT two-hand, there wasn't a comparable 12.5-foot 6-weight. So there is a 12-foot 6-weight and a 13-foot 6-weight. Now, both of those are medium fast, which might be a little bit easier to load for a newer caster than this sort of more fast action Claymore. Both of those rods came in right around 6 ounces, so the weight's about pretty comparable. So that rod's got some pretty good reviews. You got some good components. It's supposed to have some really good feel, but again, you are going to pay a little bit more. So, do I like this rod? Yes. Is it worth the money? Absolutely. So let's talk about some of the pros and the cons of this rod. Some of the pros, well, it's got a great feel and great load. And as per usual with Redington's higher end versions, you're still not paying a lot of money, but you're getting a lot of performance. And the power on this rod is really fantastic. Now, of course, there's going to be some cons with everything. And with this one, you're not getting a whole lot of high-end components on it. Even at that almost $500 range, there are more accurate rods out there than this. But again, for the money that you're paying, if you want a more accurate rod, you're probably going to have to step up into that higher end category where you're paying at least $600 to $1,000 or more to get a really nice, accurate rod. The accuracy on this is just fine. And again, for the money, the performance, the feel, the power, it's really, really a winner. Well, friends, thanks a lot for joining me out here today. I hope you liked that presentation and review on that Redington Claymore rod. Again, one last reminder, if you want to pick up a Claymore for yourself, that link is in the description below. Click that link, that helps us out. You get a rod and we all win. Also, don't forget to like this video and follow us here on this channel and look for us on all the other social media channels as well. Really helps us out when you do that. We love doing this for you. We want to keep doing it. So your support is a real big. One last time, thanks for being here. I'm Nick Jovanovich. This is Into Fly Fishing, and we'll catch you out here next time. Take care.